Picture this. It's a random Tuesday morning. You get a calendar invite with no description, just your name and your manager's name. No agenda, no context. Your stomach drops because somewhere deep down, you already know. By noon, you're walking out of the building with a box of your stuff, completely blindsided. But here's the thing that nobody tells you afterward. You were not randomly selected. There was a method to it. There was a profile. And once you understand who gets cut first and why, you will never look at your job the same way again. So today, we are pulling back the curtain on how corporate layoffs actually work, who they target, and what you need to do to make yourself the last person on that list. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth that most people refuse to accept. When a company announces layoffs, the people making those decisions are not just cutting costs randomly. They are looking at a spreadsheet of people, and they are making judgment calls. But here is the part that will shock you. Those judgment calls are often not primarily about your performance. They are about perception, politics, positioning, and visibility. You can be one of the best performers on your team and still end up on that list if you have made the wrong moves, or more often, if you have failed to make the right ones. Let's break down exactly who gets targeted first. And I want to be specific here because vague advice helps nobody. The first person on the list is what I call the invisible worker. This is the person who has spent years putting their head down, grinding away, doing genuinely excellent work, and assuming that results alone will protect them. They think performance is the shield. It is not. Here is why. When your manager is sitting in a room with HR and a list of names, they are working from memory and perception, not from a detailed audit of every contribution you have ever made. If you have not been consistently communicating your value upward, if you have not been making sure the right people know what you are doing and why it matters, then in that room, you are a blur, and blurs get cut. The person who sends their manager a quick weekly update summarizing what they accomplished and what they are working on next week builds a mental picture over time. That picture becomes evidence of value. The invisible worker has no such picture, just a vague sense that they are probably fine. They are not always fine. The second person on the list is the one trapped in low visibility work. This is slightly different from being invisible. You can be highly visible in your role and still be doing the wrong kind of work. Think about the person who volunteered to lead that massive cross-functional project that was politically messy, underfunded, and had already been quietly turned down by two other people. They took it because someone told them it was high-stakes strategic work. A year later, the project gets quietly deprioritized. Their name is attached to something that produced nothing measurable. Meanwhile, someone else was working on a project directly tied to revenue, and that person's contribution is crystal clear when the budget conversation happens. Companies do not cut people in a vacuum. They cut costs, and that means they are asking which roles and which people are clearly connected to revenue, growth, or survival. If your work exists in a support lane, a process improvement committee, an internal culture initiative, or any function that cannot be directly tied to the company making or saving money, you are exposed. That does not mean those roles are worthless, but it means you need to be actively translating your work into business impact language before the layoff conversation happens, not during it. The third profile they target is the person with no internal sponsors, not friends, not people who like you, sponsors. A sponsor is someone with actual decision-making power who would fight for you in a room you are not in. Most people confuse having a good relationship with their direct manager as being safe. But if your manager is also on thin ice, or if your manager is new and has not yet built their own political capital, their ability to protect you is limited. The people who survive layoffs most consistently are the ones who have built relationships across multiple layers of the organization. Someone in a different department who benefited from your work. A senior leader who remembers that you stepped up during a critical moment. A peer who has moved into a more senior role and views you as someone worth fighting for. If your entire professional identity lives only within your immediate team, one restructuring wipes that out completely. The fourth target is the person who has calcified their reputation. This is the person who, when their name comes up in leadership discussions, gets described with phrases like very reliable or always gets it done. Those sound like compliments. They are not. What those phrases actually signal is that this person is predictable, useful in a support capacity, and not someone we think of as a strategic leader. In a calibration meeting during layoff planning, the people described that way are not on the advancement list. They are on the infrastructure list. And infrastructure gets consolidated when things get tight. Reputation calcification happens slowly. You volunteer for operational tasks. You become the person everyone calls to get things done. You are dependable. And over time that become on your ceiling, because the people above you have mentally classified you as someone who executes rather than someone who leads. When they need to cut, they cut down the org chart. And reliable executors who are not building strategic visibility are among the first to go. The fifth target is the person who has made themselves structurally irreplaceable in the wrong direction. I know that sounds confusing, so let me explain. There is a version of being irreplaceable that protects you, and there is a version that actually traps you. The dangerous version is when you are the only person who knows how a particular broken process works. You are the one holding the system together with duct tape and tribal knowledge. You are never promoted because you can never be moved. And when the company decides to modernize that system or outsource that function entirely, there is suddenly no need for the person who managed the old broken thing. True job security does not come from being the only one who knows the weird legacy system. It comes from being someone whose skills, that's relationships, and strategic contributions would be genuinely difficult to replace at a high level. Now let's talk about something even more uncomfortable. The timing of layoffs is rarely random either. Companies tend to do large cuts after a significant financial event. A bad quarter, a change in leadership, a merger, a market shift, and the person who has been quietly managing their boss's perception, building cross-departmental relationships, and attaching their work to clear business outcomes is far less likely to end up on the list than someone who simply has not been thinking about this. Most people only start thinking about their job security when they see the news coverage about layoffs in their industry. By then, you are already behind. The strategies that protect you need to be in motion constantly, not activated in a panic. So what do you actually do? Let me give you the practical framework, because knowing why people get cut without knowing what to do about it is just anxiety with extra steps. First, audit your visibility right now. When is the last time someone above your immediate manager knew your name and could connect it to a specific win? If you cannot answer that question, that is the first problem to solve. You do not need to be performing for an audience constantly, but you do need to be making sure your work is documented and communicated in ways that reach the people who make decisions. Start sending brief written updates. Make sure your contributions are credited to you explicitly, especially in cross-functional projects. Second, look hard at where your work sits in the business. Can you draw a straight line between what you do every day and revenue, customer retention, cost reduction, or growth? If the line is blurry, your job is to sharpen it immediately. This does not mean abandoning your actual role. It means learning to speak about your work in business impact terms rather than activity terms. Instead of describing what you did, describe what changed because of what you did. Third, start deliberately building relationships outside your direct chain. Not networking in the performative sense. Genuine professional relationships with people in different functions, different levels, different areas of the business. Help someone on another team when you can. Ask a senior leader a thoughtful question. Be the person who connects two people who should know each other. These relationships become your professional safety net when things get unstable. Fourth, be very selective about what you volunteer for. The ambitious instinct to raise your hand for everything is one of the most reliable ways to end up buried in low-visibility work that consumes your time and does nothing for your career. Before you commit to anything, ask yourself 3 questions. Who will see the outcome of this work? Is this connected to something the business actually cares about right now? And what am I giving up in order to take this on? If you cannot answer those questions clearly, that is a signal to pause before committing. Fifth, manage your reputation narrative actively. The story people tell about you in rooms you are not in is your actual career. Do people describe you as someone with a specific kind of expertise and strategic contribution? Or do you just seem generally busy and helpful? You want a clear and specific reputation. This person is the one you go to when you need a certain kind of problem solved. That clarity makes you memorable, and memorable people are harder to cut. Here is the final thing I want you to understand about how layoffs really work. At the end of the day, the decision often comes down to a very human calculation. If we let this person go, what do we lose? And if no one in that room can answer that question clearly and specifically, the answer defaults to not much. Your goal is to make that question easy to answer in your favor, not by doing more work, but by making sure the right people understand the work you are already doing. The workers who survive layoff after layoff are not always the most talented. They are not always the highest performers by any objective measure. They are the ones who have made themselves visible, connected, and clearly valuable in ways that decision-makers can articulate under pressure. Start building that now, not when you see the writing on the wall. Now, because that calendar invite with no description could land in your inbox any morning, and the time to prepare for it is never after you receive it.